This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, I'm Talia.
And I'm Tanya.
And together we are Crimes and Consequences, a true crime podcast. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Talia.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of Crimes and Consequences. You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Me too. If you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe/follow button on whatever app you're listening to.
Before we start, Talia, I just wanted to mention we've gotten a couple reviews, and I know we've talked about this a few times, about people saying, like, we don't release our free episodes, that really all they are subscription episodes, that things like that. And I just want to remind everyone, we release one episode to the public for free once a week. Comes out on Mondays.
Yep, free.
Then we release one episode for our Patreon members, and that comes out on Thursday. And they get early release of Monday's episode on Friday.
And they get a mini Monday every other mini.
So sometimes,
every other Monday.
Yes, every other Monday. So sometimes you're going to look in your Apple app and you're going to see on Thursday there's a subscription episode. On Friday there's a subscription episode. And then on Monday there's a subscription episode. But that's the most that we release in 1 week that are subscription. And there is always a free episode. So I just want to remind everyone, it's there. You just have to scroll. I promise.
Yep.
Every week.
And with that being said, I have a very interesting story I'd never heard of.
Oh, I know our listeners love when they're obscure cases.
I got all the information from the court records.
Okay.
I got transcripts and everything.
Ooh.
Yeah. So are you ready?
I am.
Let's do it. Her name was Judy Hindle. Was born in 1964 to Lorna and Robert Hindle, and she was born in Renton, Washington. The family eventually moved to Boise, Idaho, which is where the story takes place. Judy graduated from high school there, and when she was about 20, she married Craig Windom. It was on July 14th in 1984. She attended Boise State University, and she ended up graduating cum laude with a bachelor's degree in social work in 1987. And I'm just giving you a little background on the woman Judy was. She worked as a licensed social worker for years. And together, Craig and Judy had two sons, Mason and Ethan Windom. In 2000, Judy got hit by a car, and she suffered traumatic brain injury.
Oh.
Her slow recovery was the catalyst that inspired her to go back to Boise State University to get a degree in special education. Judy then began working as a special education teacher at Eagle High School, and she loved her job. According to her family, quote, she could identify with students who struggled to find the right words to say and who lived with physical and mental disabilities, end quote. Eventually, her and Craig, they got divorced. They actually got divorced years before her accident. And in 1997, he remarried a woman named Kathy. And Kathy helped with Craig and Judy to co-parent Mason and Ethan. And they ended up having their own children together, which were obviously half-siblings to Ethan and Mason. In 2007, when this story takes place, Judy had primary custody of 16-year-old Ethan, who lived with her in her Boise home on Normandy Street. It was a small 3-bedroom house. Although the story takes place in 2007, it really started happening in the early fall months of 2006. Ethan's relationship with his mother began deteriorating. He was really disrespectful and mean to his 42-year-old mom. According to his stepmom, Kathy, Judy couldn't tolerate Mason's behavior either. She later said Judy confided in her that Mason, who was 19 at the time, was drinking heavily at home and often had sex with his girlfriend in his room.
Damn, that's ballsy.
I know, with his mom home.
Right.
I mean, that is ballsy.
I know.
He just didn't give a fuck. Judy had imposed a no alcohol and no sex policy in her house, and Mason kept repeating it over and over again. He drank a lot. And she was concerned that Ethan, whose bedroom was next to Mason's, was exposed to the sounds of Mason and his girlfriend drinking and having sex. In November of 2006, Mason left the house, leaving only Ethan and Judy alone in that small 3-bedroom home. Now, Mason either moved out or was kicked out, depending on who you ask. According to him, he left the house in part to escape the escalating, violent behavior of his younger brother towards his mom. Ethan, according to Mason, was out of control.
God, Judy's dealing with a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, she is. And when you find out how sweet she is, oh
Aw.
man. Ethan constantly bullied his mom. He was tired of being in the smallest bedroom, so he put all of his things in the living room and he ended up taking over the living room in essence. And he would just nag and berate his mom to the point that she ended up giving him her master bedroom.
Wow.
And she moved all of her stuff into the smallest bedroom just to appease him. And he just ran the house. If Judy didn't immediately acquiesce to Ethan's demands, he would scream at her, shove her, intimidate her physically. He would get in her face and degrade her. According to Mason, his brother would roar at his mother. It wouldn't be raising his voice. It would be a deafening roar. He called it psychological brute. His brother would say mean things, blunt things, things that just didn't need to be said over the smallest little thing, like Judy getting on his case about doing his homework. I mean, my kids are kind of nasty about homework, but not to this point yet. Ethan treated his mother like she was a servant, and he always got his way eventually if he pushed enough. He even spit in her face.
Jesus, really?
Yeah, Judy loved him unconditionally. She had a ton of patience. I mean, she's a special education teacher. But she gave in all the time to him. She purchased expensive clothes for him. Oliver Peoples glasses. They were expensive, I guess. I don't have them, but
I don't either.
he did. Expensive colognes like Armani and Jean Paul. How do you say his name?
Gaultier.
I don't have that cologne. But the bottles were about $100 each. And she got that for him, even though money was tight and she was on a budget. He didn't want the desktop computer that he had. He wanted a wireless one, and he nagged her and nagged her and nagged her until he got a laptop, even though he had a desktop. This behavior continued on for months, and it just grew worse as time went on. During the Christmas season, Ethan vented his frustrations about his mother to his brother Mason. Ethan told his brother, quote, "That bitch is going to get what she deserves." And he said that to him after they got into some fight. In another conversation with his brother Mason, Ethan bragged that he knew how to kill someone and then trick a psychologist into giving a false diagnosis of a mental disorder.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. What is he, 16,
He's
17?
16 years old.
I'm sure he knows exactly.
Super clever.
Mm-hmm.
Judy was at her wit's end. She confided in a coworker who was also her friend. Her name was Glenna Neal, about some of the troubles that she was having at home. And she expressed that, she was concerned for her own safety with Ethan living in the house. On one occasion, she told Glenna that Ethan had the audacity to lock her in her bedroom, and he blocked the door, and I don't know how he locked it from the outside, but he wouldn't let her out for a while. He pressed against it, I guess. Just to give you an idea of what a kind person Judy was, I'm going to read you a note that she left Glenna one day on Glenna's desk at work. It says, quote, "Glenna, you are one of my angels. I can never thank you enough for the work that you do each day and night. You've been such a blessing in my life. You've been so willing to help me at work and with my boys. I appreciate your hard work and the extra work you do to help me, and your friendship and your assistance in making my classroom run more smoothly. All the best always. Sincerely, Judy."
Oh, that's a nice note.
I know, isn't that sweet?
Yes.
Glenna was worried to death for Judy and warned her on multiple occasions, you got to get out of that house. It's not safe for you. But Judy thought she could handle it. She did reach out to her ex-husband Craig about Ethan's behavior on multiple occasions, but nothing changed with Ethan. She even told Craig that she believed Ethan would one day kill her in the middle of the night as she slept.
Oh my God.
That's
pretty fucking scary.
That is, yeah.
That you are worried about your kid is going to murder you.
Nevertheless, Judy wouldn't give up on Ethan, and she tried everything to get him the help that she thought he needed. She took him to multiple doctors, and he was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and a generalized anxiety disorder. He was prescribed the anti-anxiety medication Klonopin, and that's a sedative, along with Wellbutrin. Over the months, Ethan met with several therapists, but his behavior never got any better. It just got worse. Judy made sure that no matter what, he attended all of his appointments. Even if she couldn't take him because she had to work or something, she would have a taxi pick him up and drop him off. I mean, during the winter months of 2006 and the beginning of 2007, Ethan never missed a single appointment. She was really adamant that he get the help he needed. But he confided in a lot of friends that therapy was not working for him. His thoughts were out of control, and he felt like there was a monster inside him telling him to hurt other people.
Uh-oh.
And it wouldn't be long before this monster would be unleashed. Ethan's vicious behavior wasn't isolated just to his home. Teachers at his school were aware of his disturbing thoughts, and they were monitoring his behavior. He was having some issues there. He got into a fight with a classmate. I don't know all the details about it, but I know that afterwards he told friends that he was going to go get himself committed to a mental hospital and pretend to be psychotic. But he would tell his therapists and doctors that he wasn't suicidal or homicidal. He didn't have any of those thoughts. But that was a lie. Then he started fighting more with his closer friends, and he confided in Mason he was tired of their bullshit too.
Damn.
His behavior became increasingly eccentric and bizarre. He developed this fascination with lifting weights and nagged Judy until she got him this weight bench and weight set. He also made her buy expensive protein powders to help bulk up his muscles. And in only a few short months, he did end up attaining an intimidating stature. He got big. Now listen to this. He also became obsessed with studying psychology, including abnormal psychology, which he had a class in. And he was infatuated with serial killers.
Oh, man.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
He especially emulated Patrick Bateman.
Oh, shit.
The main character from the book and later the movie, American Psycho. And
Yeah.
we had another guy that did that too.
I know, I can't remember, but
I can't remember the case.
I think that's a popular book for young men. I know my husband loved that book when it came out.
Well, listen to how crazy his obsession became with Patrick Bateman. He wanted to imitate Bateman so much that he had his mom buy him the same luggage
Oh,
that
shut
he
up.
used and the white comforter that the character used. He followed the same skin routine and began to discuss with his friends the same topics that Bateman discussed in the book.
Did you ever see the movie?
I didn't.
With
I keep saying I'm going to.
Christian Bale.
Yeah, I know it. I didn't. He would wear a suit and carry a briefcase sometimes. He started taking 2 showers a day and applying a cosmetic face mask after the first shower. And apparently the character did that in the movie. I did not see it. He would snort his antidepressant Wellbutrin and his Klonopin through a $1 bill because the character snorted cocaine in the film.
This is just so dumb.
And he admired psychopaths because they were, quote, the smartest group of guys and they're the most interesting. They have an exciting life.
Well, they are interesting.
He had multiple books on killers in his room, just like me.
Yeah, really, I know. I've got stacks of books about murder in my bedroom.
Got them right around us right now, too. On January 24th of 2007, the sun rose at 8:10 in Boise, and it was a chilly 23 degrees outside. For some reason, Ethan felt twitchy. No matter what he did, he couldn't calm himself down. Judy had gotten up around 4:30 that morning and left for work. That was her usual routine. There was a monster growing inside Ethan that day, and the urge to kill became so strong. It overtook Ethan. As the day dragged on, the growing need to kill someone or something just consumed his thoughts. He was desperate to find a release from these urges, so he took one of his Klonopin, his sedatives, but it didn't work. So he took another one, then another one, then another
Oh,
one,
damn.
and then another one. But that monster, it wouldn't calm down.
Doesn't he have school?
I think this is after school. Honestly, I think so. The sun set at 5:45 as the day turned into night. Judy bought groceries after work, and she dropped them off at Mason and his girlfriend Chelsea's apartment because Mason lived with his girlfriend Chelsea. Then she came home, had some dinner, and she went to bed around 9 p.m. like she normally did. All the while, Ethan's just trying to contain these overbearing, homicidal urges. When his mother was sleeping, Ethan came to the conclusion that he was going to have to murder someone that night. He thought to himself that, okay, I'm going to leave home, I'm going to walk downtown, and I'm going to stab a couple of what he referred to as worthless bums.
Oh, that's nice.
He had to do it. And besides, who's going to care about a few murdered homeless people?
Right. I mean,
that's what he's thinking.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he's thinking.
There's nothing but city garbage to him. But he grew concerned as he started preparing for this murder spree. What if his mom woke up and caught him getting ready? What if she woke up and noticed he was missing somehow and maybe thwarted his plan? He thought to himself, if I'm going to kill a couple bums, why not add my mom to the list?
Sure, why not?
So Ethan came up with a way to murder his mother. That way, she couldn't spoil his killer rampage. But before I tell you more, we're going to take a quick break. So this is what Ethan first came up with. He was going to do what he called a 3-shot kill, which I've never heard of before.
No, I haven't either.
He was going to stab her in the neck, stab her in the heart, and stab her under the arms. That would guarantee a death.
Under the arms?
I guess, I don't know.
Is there an artery under there that we don't know about?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
That was his 3-shot kill. But when he went into Judy's room and he saw how she was laying, he decided he wouldn't be able to do the 3-shot kill based on her position. I think she was laying maybe on her side.
Okay.
I don't know. He just said he couldn't based on her position. So instead, he loaded a multitude of weights onto one end of his barbell.
Oh, shit.
He then grabbed a pair of gloves and he put them on. And in the darkness of the house, he crept over to Judy's bedroom. He stood over her as she slept. And then, using his gloved hand, he placed it over Judy's mouth to prevent her from screaming. He took the barbell with the additional weights and he swung it at her like a club, hitting her in the head.
Oh.
After the first swing, he ended up using both hands to swing the weights, and he bludgeoned her over and over and over again until he didn't have any strength left in his arms.
Damn.
All to the head.
Oh, no.
Shit.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah,
Poor
shit,
Judy.
yeah.
Damn.
But the beating of his mother and the total annihilation of her face and head wasn't enough for him. He later said her brain, it sounded like it was coming from her brain, was making a hissing, or there was a gurgling noise from that area, and it really bothered him. So he went to the kitchen and he grabbed 2 knives.
Ugh.
He plunged a Winchester knife into her no less than 30 times.
Stop it. Really?
Stabbed her in the heart and the
God.
lungs at least 16 times. And then, to top the violence off, he slit her throat.
Damn.
When he was 100% sure that she was dead, he took a second knife and he plunged it into Judy's brain and left it there.
Wow.
Like a prop.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. That's
Dude.
her
Damn.
16-year-old son.
Jesus. Poor Judy.
Poor Judy.
Damn, she didn't deserve that, man.
It's so horrible. Only when he completely destroyed his mother did the monster inside him calm down. He calmly went into his room and changed out of his bloody clothes. He ended up washing his mother's blood off of him. He gathered up some blankets. He went back into Judy's room and he covered her desecrated body with a blanket. He gathered up more blankets and put them on his mom's floor to cover up the blood spatter and tissue. And this is really odd. He then dumped bags of cat and dog food on the floor.
What?
Because they had a cat and dog.
That's fucking weird.
And he lit a candle in his mom's room. He then changed the message on their answering machine, because this is when they still had, and people had answering machines. It said, quote, "If you're trying to reach Judy or Ethan, we are actually out in Washington right now, having a little trouble with family problems. So we're going to take a trip out there. I'm sure we'll be there and be back by the next week, end quote.
Oh, that was so clever. Covering his tracks, right? Buying some time.
It's
So fucking weird.
Yeah. So the next morning he has school. And usually his friends Ashley and Mike would pick him up, but Ethan called and left a message for Ashley at 1:30 saying he wasn't going to go to school tomorrow or the next day because he felt like crap. As the night dragged on, Ethan got restless and he decided to leave. He locked up the house and he took off on foot, and he was going to head 6 miles across town to his father's house. A neighbor, it's a stepfather of a schoolmate that was one of their neighbors, spotted him walking and yelled out his name, wondering why are you out so late? But Ethan took off and he hid, and then eventually he just kept walking. He threw out the Winchester knife that he used to stab his mom, not the one in her brain, somewhere on the side of the road, and he started thumbing it, hitchhiking. A stranger, he was a security guard, he worked as a security guard, picked him up and drove him to his dad's house. I imagine his father's surprise when Ethan shows up in the middle of the night at his door. And he was even more shocked when Ethan told him that someone had entered the house and murdered his mother. His father's like, oh shit.
Yeah, what the hell?
And he immediately called the police to go and check on Judy. By the time the officers arrived to Judy and Ethan's home, Judy had been dead for a few hours. When they entered the room, the scene was horrifying. The blankets Ethan had placed on the floor didn't cover up all the blood.
Oh, geez.
And the comforter on top of Judy was soaked with blood. There was a bloody barbell with the weights on it next to the bed. And when they lifted the blankets from her body, the damage was so severe that they could not identify her as having a face.
Oh, no.
And that's from the court records.
Oh, my God.
A bloody knife was stuck in between her broken skull and brain matter. Police also found in the house a day planner with 7 graphic pictures Ethan drew of women being brutally murdered with knives, ropes, and chains.
Oh, that's great.
Judy's brothers, Mark and Jeff, they had to go to Judy's Normandy house after the murder to get items for the funeral. Mark later said, quote, I will never forget entering the house 2 days after her death. My brother and I did our best to clean her room before our sister Debbie arrived, so she could gather photos and items for the funeral display. We removed a blood-soaked mattress and covered the blood-spattered walls and ceilings with blankets and towels. But there were still tiny blood spatters everywhere. Judy wrote prayers to God all the time. One of our favorites, and we still have a copy of it, had been on her dresser next to the bed, and you can see the drops of blood on it, end quote.
How awful.
That's fucked up.
That is so messed up.
Her funeral was closed casket, obviously. Her family was able to visit with her body with a sheet over it, and they put her hand on top of the sheet so they knew that there was a body there.
Oh,
and
man.
her nails had been painted to cover the discoloration of them, and she never had her nails painted. And it was pretty traumatic for her family. I mean, you can imagine they couldn't even view her body. Prior to her funeral, though, Ethan had his first initial interview with police. And I couldn't get all the details of what he said to the police. I only got the gist of it. He insisted that a stranger had entered their house and bludgeoned his mother to death, then forced him to stick the knife in her brain, and it was completely against his will. He was really arrogant during the interview, toying with police officers, goading them about their personal lives, and mocking them with his superior intelligence. He felt like he was the smartest person in the room, and he seemed to think he was going to get away with this murder. When the detectives started, letting him know you're not the smartest person in this room, he became enraged. He was confrontational. He bragged about getting into smart people's heads and knowing all the symptoms of schizophrenia. Like, why are you telling the police? Why are you telling the police this? They tried to say, maybe you have multiple personalities and another personality did it. And he said, oh, no, that line of questioning isn't going to work. They asked him if he was a psychopath. And Ethan responded that he was not because, quote, most of them are impulsive and I'm not impulsive.
Really?
He then said you can't diagnose anyone under 18 with psychopathy and admitted that he didn't really know if he was or not.
He is. There.
He is.
That's my medical diagnosis.
When officers told him, we don't believe your story, this is shit. And we believe that you are involved in your mother's death. I think Ethan realized that, like, he's not going to get away with it. So he started bartering bits of information for favors for the officers. He agreed to tell the truth if they would guarantee him a private cell. And this is what he said. He said, quote, "All right, I'll tell you about this, but I've got to make sure that I'm going to have a single cell. I will tell you the truth, but I want a single cell first," end quote. The officer says, "All right, I'll give you a single cell." And then Ethan began to confess. He tells the officers, quote, "Sure, I did it." And he shrugs his shoulders. "I whacked her in the head." That's what he said. "I whacked her in the head."
Really? That's what he explained on how he did it?
They asked him how he whacked her in the head. And leaning forward and smiling, he said, "Easily."
Wow.
Detectives asked how it was easy. And he replied, smiling once again and shaking his head, "It was no problem at all. That's how easy it was."
That's creepy.
During his confession, he was very calm, matter of fact. He smiled while describing killing his mother and exactly how he felt, snickering repeatedly over the gruesome details. He talked about how he'd never seen skin torn apart like that. It was like paper, but worse, more like clay or elastic that just rips.
Oh.
When he was finished, they asked him, "How do you feel?" And he said, "I feel nothing. Nothing at all. Nothing at all."
Judy's poor family has to know this,
This is
right? This is the nephew that they loved, and how awful.
The officers asked him, "Where's the knife you used to stab your mom?" The Winchester knife. And he said, quote, "I'll tell you where the knife is, but I've got to have my personal stuff first. I've got $100 worth of Armani and John Paul,
Gaultier.
thank you, cologne, body wash and deodorant, and I want that personal stuff in my cell. If you'll promise me that you'll give me that stuff, I'll tell you where the knife is."
So what, does he want to smell nice for the other inmates?
I don't know. He also wanted that white comforter too.
What a weirdo. That's what his priorities are?
Yes.
He wants to smell nice.
It tells you where his
Delightful.
mind is.
Yes.
He was arrested and indicted by a grand jury for first-degree murder. While he was incarcerated, he was evaluated by multiple doctors,
I can imagine.
psychologists, psychiatrists, one being a Dr. Craig Beaver and another one being a psychiatrist, Dr. Michael Estes. Both concluded that Ethan was not suffering from depression and anxiety, but was a paranoid schizophrenic who had suffered a psychotic break shortly before killing his mother. When he was in jail, he was prescribed Hadol, I think that's how you pronounce it, which had to be injected every day. And that's used to treat mental mood disorders such as schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. And it did seem to help him after about 6 weeks. He even admitted to Dr. Estes, quote, "At times it feels hopeless because it was me that hurt my mother and the rest of my family. I wish that things had not occurred as they did. I love my mother and I'll always miss her," end quote.
Damn.
Both doctors believed that if he'd been properly diagnosed and treated, Ethan would have never committed this brutal murder. They concluded that he was a good candidate for rehabilitation and probation.
Really?
Mm-hmm. They opined that he wouldn't be a threat to society if he was released on probation and if he had proper supervision because he'd been compliant with his treatments in jail.
Like he had a choice.
Yes. Dr. Estes noted that Ethan had, quote, articulated his concerns about his impulse control, his homicidal ideation, and his concerns about the internal loss of control of his external behavior for some time prior to the incident.
But he never did tell his treating doctor, right?
Right. This is what he told the doctor from Juvie. And then the Dr. Estes went on to say, it seems to me to be incredible that this young man's cries for help with thoughts and ideas that were absolutely beyond his control were not recognized as early signs and symptoms of a quite serious psychotic illness. Ethan's pleas for help with his inappropriate, illogical, paranoid, and aggressive ideation were left wanting because of the misinterpretation and insignificance it was to others.
But he didn't mention these again, right? Did he tell his treating doctors?
No, he just told some friends,
right?
And maybe his brother.
But they don't know. They're not experts. They're not trained to deal with someone who says shit like that. Teenagers are dramatic too sometimes. Sometimes they just say shit.
The gist of what he goes on to say is that basically the system failed him.
Which is probably true.
And that if he could just be released on probation and take his medicine, he'd be fine.
So they're recommending probation?
Yes, 2 of the doctors did. But it was noted that Ethan, as you pointed out, had no choice but to comply with his medication when he was in jail. And they also had to change it multiple times. They're always titrating it. It goes up and down and new medications at various times because he really still wasn't all that well. And he wouldn't cooperate when they try to integrate him with other juveniles in the jail yard, try to get him to go exercise or something. He refused to cooperate. Now, the state argued Ethan did not murder his mother during a psychotic break, but had planned to do so and planned to hide behind a fake or exaggerated mental illness when he did it. And they called 2 medical professionals that evaluated Ethan. They diagnosed him with being anxious and depressed and suffering from psychopathology, which, yes.
Yeah.
He's definitely suffering from psychopathology. The prosecutor noted that Ethan was fascinated by the study of serial killers, abnormal psychology, and how he bragged that he could convince doctors he was psychotic even when he wasn't, to avoid punishment for his actions. And he repeatedly informed the investigators that he was smarter than them, smarter than his friends, and how much he idolized psychopaths. Now, those arguments were made at Ethan's sentencing because he took a plea deal. He pled guilty to second-degree murder. The only question was, what was his sentencing term going to be? At court, Ethan spoke, and he apologized to his family. Despite the recommendations of the 2 doctors that were for Ethan's defense, the district court sentenced Ethan to serve a life in prison with no possibility of parole.
Damn, really? For second-degree murder?
Yeah.
Wow. In Idaho?
Yeah.
Man, they're not fucking around.
They believe that he was psycho. I mean, I'm summarizing. And he admitted that he'd thought of killing since he was in 8th grade. So if he's 16, he's probably like junior, sophomore.
Yeah.
So for a couple years. Now, this life sentence without the possibility of parole stunned his father, Craig, and his stepmother, Kathy, because they had supported the idea of rehabilitation. But his brother, Mason, he didn't.
Mason witnessed this shit, I'm sure, right? He lived with them for a while.
Oh, yeah, he saw how his brother behaved. He didn't see the murder, but yeah. And so Mason couldn't forgive Ethan for what he did to his mother. And that ended up causing a rift in his relationship with his father and Kathy.
Too bad.
So, yeah. So poor Mason. I mean, everybody that loved Judy. Although Ethan was originally sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, the Idaho Supreme Court ordered the lower court in 2017 to re-sentence Ethan. And this is based on the Miller case. And I didn't want to get into all of that, but because he was 16 at the time of the murder. And in 2018, Ethan was given a new sentence. He got 26 years to life. He will be eligible for parole in 2033. Judy's brother, Mark, had this to say about the murder. Quote, "This crime has brought my family to unspeakable pain and anger and overwhelming sorrow. When Ethan beat and stabbed his mother to death, not only did he end her life and ruined his, he also shattered my family and broke our hearts. Our sister was a precious gift to the world, a peacemaker who liked to bless others."
Oh, damn, this was a pisser. Oh, man. You know, I'm torn.
Well, I mean, I can't even believe, like, probation. That's just not.
No,
not
I mean, that's not a proper punishment.
Because who's going to supervise him taking his medicine?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, who's going to really supervise it? Was his parole officer?
He can't be there every day.
Right.
At some point, he would be left on his own. And we all know compliance is a big issue when it comes to medication.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never finish my antibiotics.
No. I know, right?
And I should.
I'm a non-compliant patient a lot.
I mean, that's
for
just the
harmless
truth.
shit,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, this is just so sad. I am so sorry for Mason and the rest of Judy's family. And I'm sorry that his father...
It's just shitty.
Yeah, this is bad. Damn. Well, thanks to Leah.
That's the story of Judy Windom.
I know. She sounded so wonderful, too. It takes a special kind of person, really, to be a special ed. teacher.
Really?
I mean,
It
to be any
does.
type of teacher, but
Yes.
but special ed too. Whew, she must have had the patience of a saint, really.
It sounds like it.
She loved her job. God bless her. Wow.
So thank you, everybody, for taking a little time out this week to listen to this
Fucked up story.
pissy, sad story.
So sad.
So sad.
So awful. Thank you, Talia.
You're welcome. If you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe/follow button on that app so you can get a notification for next week's great release. And if you want to hear more of our stories that are not released to the public, you can go to patreon.com/TNT Crimes. We have buttloads of it. With stories there. You can also get like episodes like this ad-free and early released. Eventually we're going to start those lives again.
Someday.
When
things calm down.
And we have social media.
At Hardcore True Crime.
Hardcore True Crime.
Instagram and Facebook.
There you go. We have our website, crimesandconsequences.com. And we also have an Apple channel where you can subscribe and get the same stuff as patreon.com/TNT Crimes.
Yep, absolutely.
Just hit that subscribe button on the Apple channel.
Just do it. It's so easy.
So easy. You can do it.
And you'll get so many episodes.
So many. Get our first ones. They're a little rough.
They are a little rough, but you got to start somewhere.
Right. That's true.
So,
again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for listening. And until our next episode,
don't kill each other.
Bye.
Bye.